think confession for you today that I could very comfortably say is I'm the happiest that I've ever been. And that part, to have a partner and a husband who is just so supportive, and to have healthy kids that are so joyful in the freeness of their life and the safety of their life that we create for them, of all the things that have happened in my life, I never would have imagined getting here at this point. I would feel just so happy and grateful, and I really do.
There are moments in this long, extraordinary saga, the saga of Meghan Markle, Prince Harry, a family fractured beyond recognition, and a monarchy tested like never before, that leave even the most seasoned royal watchers completely speechless. Not because what happens is surprising anymore. Those watching closely have long moved past surprise. What takes the breath away now is the sheer audacity of it, the confidence, the smoothness, the instinct behind it all. You almost have to admire the nerve. Almost. Picture this, deep in the quiet Norfolk countryside, far from cameras, far from noise, far from the relentless celebrity machine, the Prince and Princess of Wales just dropped the most beautiful photographs. A little boy, gap-toothed and giggling, sitting on a log in soft morning light, wearing a simple blue checked shirt, grinning with that enormous, heartbreaking, purely joyful smile only a 7-year-old can pull off.
Harry horror show rolled into New York last night, and I say horror show for him because if he was ever worried about being the spare within the royal family, then just take a look at his face here as he arrived at the time event where he was playing second fiddle as ever to his wife. That's the look on his face when he comes to the understanding that he's not going to get any special treatment now that he's simply a little bit of royal arm candy for Ms. Markle.
Prince Louis, youngest child of William and Catherine, 7 years old, and the living image of everything warm, hopeful, and genuinely lovely about the British royal family. The world reacted exactly as expected. Social media exploded within minutes. Newspapers scrambled to lead with the images. Royal fans from Edinburgh to Los Angeles were sharing those photos, talking about how tall he'd grown, how much he looks like his father, how impossibly sweet that smile is. By every single measure, it was an uncontested moment of pure royal joy, uncomplicated, uncontroversial, beautiful. Prince Louis's moment. Prince Louis's day, a day that belonged entirely to him. And then, right on cue, as if scripted, Meghan Markle stepped onto a stage in New York City and made absolutely sure every eye shifted to her instead. What followed unleashed a wave of sharp criticism from royal commentators, media analysts, and people who know Meghan better than almost anyone.
Nothing with that woman is a coincidence. She stalks the Princess of Wales and the entire family. So yeah, like you said, it was just completely bizarre that she suddenly injected in there randomly about Archie losing a tooth. She's certifiable.
People like her half-sister, Samantha Markle, who has watched this exact pattern play out repeatedly, and who says plainly that what happened that day was no coincidence, no oversight, no bad timing. It was, Samantha says, exactly what it looked like. Today, we're walking through every detail of what Meghan did, why Samantha says it was fully deliberate, and what this single moment held up to the light reveals about the woman behind the carefully curated image. When you lay out all the facts, the timing, the statements, the contradictions, the history, the picture that emerges is nothing short of extraordinary. And trust us, this story goes way deeper than a missing tooth. To fully understand why what Meghan did hit so differently, why it triggered real anger from people who normally stay measured and fair, you first need to understand what Prince Louis's birthday photographs actually mean. Not just to the royal family, not just to the British press, but to the millions of people worldwide who have genuinely grown to love these children. People who've watched them grow up through carefully shared glimpses, who feel that deep, personal connection that true royal supporters carry with them. Every year, the Princess of Wales releases a birthday photograph of each of her 3 children, and it has become one of the most beloved traditions of the modern monarchy. Fans mark the dates on their calendars.
She got with Harry, and fast forward, now she's on the Time 100 list. She's got a kids book out. She's had a couple of podcasts. I mean, she's now selling jam because it's her jam. I mean, everything that she's got, the 16-bathroom mansion, is all because she, at the right timing, with the right connections at Soho House, married, well, basically found Harry and got him to marry her. So yeah, I mean, what woman wouldn't be elevated if that's your goal in life, to be a social climber or a gold digger? She won the lottery.
Royal correspondents prep their coverage days ahead, and when the image drops, usually in the morning, usually with a short, warm caption, the reaction is always the same: pure joy, pure delight, like the world just received a small but precious gift. These photos are not just charming snapshots, they are something deeper. They are Catherine's way of sharing her children on her own terms, intimate without being exploitative. A gift from a mother to a public that has watched these children grow up from day one, and the public receives them exactly like that, with warmth, with gratitude, with genuine love. On Prince Louis's 7th birthday, Catherine delivered once again. Louis, photographed in Norfolk, wearing that blue checked shirt, perched on a log in gorgeous natural light, hair slightly tousled, eyes bright, smile absolutely massive, and those teeth, that legendary gap-toothed grin. The missing front teeth that every child loses around this age, that every parent captures with laughter and tenderness, because there is nothing more purely, perfectly childhood than that moment. Within an hour, the images had been shared hundreds of thousands of times, trending everywhere, royal correspondents writing with real warmth about how fast Louis has grown, how much personality radiates through every shot.
And at the same time, to prioritize what we're going to put out as our next tranche of SKUs, as equally important to me as Archie losing his first tooth this week, which is about to happen, and I just hope we're back home in time for it.
It was a good morning, a purely, simply good morning. And Prince Louis had no idea, sitting on that log in Norfolk, what was about to happen to his moment. On that very same morning, the same morning those birthday photographs were traveling around the world, Meghan Markle and Prince Harry touched down in New York City for the Time 100 Summit. This is a prestigious annual gathering held at one of Manhattan's most glamorous venues, bringing together what Time magazine calls leaders from its global community, figures from business, entertainment, politics, philanthropy, science, a room packed with people who are, or desperately want to be seen as, genuinely influential. Now, and this is the argument Meghan's defenders make, and it is worth acknowledging, she had been confirmed as a speaker at this summit weeks in advance. The date was set, the schedule was published. She did not, on the surface, choose that date because of Louis's birthday. She was invited, she accepted, she showed up. That is the case for the defense, and it is not nothing. But here is the counter-argument, and it is one that Samantha Markle and a significant number of royal commentators find very compelling. Meghan Markle is not some casual, go-with-the-flow public figure. She is one of the most strategically managed media personalities on the planet. Full professional PR team, image consultants, communication specialists, every appearance carefully considered, prepared, and calibrated. Nothing left to chance, nothing accidental. The date of Prince Louis's birthday is not a secret. It has never been a secret.
But there's no way she raised that tooth line without knowing about Louis.
No, she was in the car as she arrived, and she would have been searching social media, because I do not believe her saying that she doesn't listen to it all. She gets notified if something's important. She does clapbacks, as does Harry. Every tiny little thing appears in a magazine, normally People magazine or whoever they're running to give exclusive. It's the Telegraph of late, isn't it? And every tiny detail, they've done a clapback. And I know that Meghan's on social media, and we know her friends are as well, obviously, because of the crying makeup artist got up rather upset with me. But I think she would have been surfing the internet and would have seen that Prince Louis wasn't just trending because it was his birthday.
It is public record, known to every royal journalist and watcher on the planet, and yet Meghan's team, with all their resources and meticulous attention to her public schedule, apparently did not notice, did not flag it, did not pause for even a moment to consider whether their client appearing on a global stage on that precise day might be worth a second thought. You may find that believable. Many people simply do not. She arrived, as always, impeccably dressed, a tan linen suit, crisp white button-down shirt, looking every inch the polished, serious-minded entrepreneur she has spent years carefully constructing herself to be. Harry was beside her, as he almost always is at these events. Cameras were waiting, as they always are when Meghan is involved. And the morning that had belonged to Prince Louis was about to get a whole lot more complicated. Meghan was interviewed on stage by Times chief executive, the conversation framed around her podcast, Confessions of a Female Founder.
She seems to be obsessed with trying to overshadow Prince Louis's birthday. She does something every single year, but it's the fact that it was to do with his teeth missing. It was toothless, and that's what was going round because he looked absolutely adorable, and lots of people were talking about his toothless grin. Now all of a sudden, it just happened to be the exact same day that Archie is losing his tooth, and he may well be. It could be a coincidence, exactly the same as it's a coincidence that she started merching Princess Charlotte's and Princess George's most famous items of clothing. Nothing with that woman is a coincidence.
And the interview began exactly the way these things always begin with Meghan, with a personal revelation, carefully chosen, precisely delivered, designed to land. She was asked to make a confession, and Meghan, never a woman short of things to say about herself, delivered one with a beaming, seemingly unguarded smile. She said, "I want you to really hear these words. I'm the happiest I've ever been." She spoke of everything that has happened in her life, saying she could not have imagined arriving at this point feeling so genuinely, completely happy and grateful. She looked out at the room with that expression of luminous contentment she does so well. The audience applauded. The cameras rolled, and across the Atlantic, phones started buzzing. Because let's think about what that statement actually means. The happiest she has ever been. Not the happiest in years, not the happiest since leaving the royal family, the happiest of her entire 43 years of life. Happier than on her wedding day, that fairy tale ceremony at Windsor Castle watched by tens of millions, when she walked toward a prince in that breathtaking Givenchy gown. Happier than at the birth of her children. Happier, apparently, than at any other moment in her entire life, sitting in a conference room in Manhattan, talking about her lifestyle brand while her husband stood quietly nearby. Now, you might think that is simply a lovely thing to say and move on, but royal watchers could not move on.
And I say horror show for him because if he was ever worried about being the spare within the royal family, then just take a look at his face here. As he arrived at the time event where he was playing second fiddle as ever to his wife, that's the look on his face when he comes to the understanding that he's not going to get any special treatment now that he's simply a little bit of royal arm candy for Ms. Markle.
Because this is the same woman who sat across from Oprah Winfrey in one of the most watched television interviews of the decade and described life inside the royal family in terms that were nothing short of devastating. She spoke of isolation, of feeling unprotected, of institutional cruelty and abandonment. She said she had felt so desperate, so completely without support, that she had thought about ending her life. These were shattering words that reverberated around the world. And now she is the happiest she has ever been. What does that say about the suffering she described so publicly, so movingly, to such a massive audience? Was it exaggerated? Was it performed? Was it a narrative deployed for a specific purpose at a specific moment, and now that purpose served, quietly replaced with a brand new one? These are uncomfortable questions. But they are exactly the questions a great many people found themselves asking as that clip spread across the internet. Samantha Markle has a view on all of that. But first, the moment that truly detonated the conversation. During her time on stage, Meghan spoke about her children. She mentioned her son Archie, approaching his 6th birthday, and shared a detail that in any other context, on any other day, would have sounded entirely charming.
He is probably more unhappy than he has ever been in his life, but not if you listen to the top line of Meghan's confession. Watch.
I think confession for you today that I could very comfortably say is I'm the happiest that I've ever been. And that part, to have a partner and a husband who is just so supportive, and to have healthy kids that are so joyful in the freeness of their life and the safety of their life that we create for them, of all the things that have happened in my life, I never would have imagined getting here at this point. I would feel just so happy and grateful, and I really do.
Of course, she's absolutely at peak happiness, Dan. This is a woman that was being written out of Suits, that was running out of time in being able to get other acting roles.
She said that Archie is going to lose his first tooth that very week. She said it with a warm laugh, with that particular maternal tenderness that photographs well and plays beautifully on camera. She said she desperately hoped to get back home to Montecito in time to be there for it, that, of all the things on her packed schedule, all the summits and launches and podcasts and press appearances, all she really cared about was making it home for Archie's tooth. It landed exactly as it was designed to land. The audience smiled, the room softened, and several outlets picked it up immediately. Meghan reveals adorable Archie milestone. Duchess races home to be with son. Sweet, maternal, relatable, human. Exactly the brand of coverage Meghan's team had been carefully cultivating. But now let's put this moment into its full context, because context is everything. On that very morning, not the previous week, not the day before, not sometime recently, that exact morning, the photographs of Prince Louis had already gone out.
She knows how to turn on the tears, or she knows how to pretend to be happy, whereas Harry, he can't fake it. He can't fake his misery, his absolute horror. And I will say Meghan is a pretty good liar. Because, like all of her interviews, and you know I just use that L word now, lies, lies, lies everywhere.
Louis, with his enormous gap-toothed grin, his missing front teeth on full display, his smile lighting up every royal news channel, every social media feed, every newspaper website in the English-speaking world. Louis's missing teeth were already the story. They were in every headline. Royal correspondents were writing warmly about that particular stage of childhood, the tooth fairy stage, the wobbly teeth stage, that brief and beautiful window every parent wishes they could slow down. Missing teeth were already the conversation of the morning. And within hours, Meghan Markle stood on a stage in New York and told the world about her own child's missing tooth. Sit with that for a moment. Not a missing tooth in general, not a vague reference to Archie growing up a tooth, a first tooth. This week, on the precise day the world was already talking about a royal child's teeth. On any other day of the year, the mention would have passed without a second thought, a sweet maternal moment, noted and moved on from. But on this one specific day, this one day in the entire calendar year, when missing royal teeth were already dominating the news cycle, Meghan Markle brought up her own child's missing tooth on a global media platform, and the result was exactly what you might expect. Meghan's name entered the same news cycle as Louis' birthday.
You only ever see the backs or arms or a limb of Archie and Lily, and they're always around adults, never ever playing with other children. So whenever she mentions the children, it just, I don't know, nothing ever seems to ring true.
Her children were mentioned alongside his. Her maternal devotion was discussed in the same breath as Catherine's. The spotlight wobbled, and where it wobbled, Meghan stepped right in. Coincidence? Let's hear what people who actually know Meghan have to say about that. There are not many people who can speak about Meghan Markle from personal knowledge, rather than observation, people who knew her before the cameras, before the titles, before the global fame, who watched her grow up and can say with real authority, "This is who she is. This is where it comes from. This is what I have always known." Samantha Markle is one of those people. She is also one of the most controversial figures in this entire story because what she says about her half-sister is devastating, and because her motives for saying it are constantly questioned. She has been accused of bitterness, of jealousy, of using her connection to Meghan for personal gain. These are serious accusations, and they deserve to be acknowledged. But here is what Samantha's supporters point to, and it is worth considering carefully time and again, the things Samantha warned about.
Oh, a lot of us. I mean, firstly, Tash, before we get to that, I'm just going to say it. Poor Archie. Archie so desperately needs to be in the UK with his cousins, because don't you just get the sense that Meghan is not going to be happy unless this prince ends up a non-binary with a tongue piercing and purple hair?
The patterns she identified, the behaviors she described, have proven accurate. She was calling out Meghan's tendency to rewrite her own history long before the world caught up with that story. She identified how Meghan uses personal relationships as stepping stones, long before the documentaries and tell-alls made it impossible to ignore. By almost any objective measure, Samantha has proven to be a far more reliable guide to Meghan's actual character than those who preferred to believe the carefully curated version. And when Samantha looks at what happened on Louis's birthday, the summit, the appearance, the tooth comment, the news cycle bending itself once again toward Meghan, she is not surprised, not outraged, not anymore. She is something closer to resigned, because she says she has seen this playbook so many times she could recite every move in her sleep. The pattern, as Samantha describes it, goes like this. Meghan has an extraordinarily sharp instinct for inserting herself into moments that do not belong to her, for sensing exactly where the spotlight is pointing and finding a way, subtle or not so subtle, to pull it in her direction. This instinct does not always announce itself loudly. Sometimes it is a well-timed public appearance. Sometimes it is a personal anecdote that just happens to mirror the exact news cycle. Sometimes it is a statement so carefully calibrated that by the time anyone thinks to question it, the story has already moved on and done its job.
Prince Louis looks so happy with his little toothless grin in the video clip they shared. That's just a normal, healthy child that loves the outdoors, spending time with his family and his cousins. And you see all the other cousins as well interacting. But you only ever see the backs or arms or a limb of Archie and Lily, and they're always around adults, never ever playing with other children. So whenever she mentions the children, it just, I don't know, nothing ever seems to ring true.
But on Louis's birthday, Samantha says, it was not particularly subtle at all. To mention a child's tooth specifically, a tooth on the one day of the entire year, when the world was already celebrating a royal child's gap-toothed smile, was, in Samantha's clear and direct view, deliberate, intentional, a redirect, a move. And it worked, which is the part that should concern everyone most. To understand why so many people take this accusation seriously, why they do not simply shrug and scroll past, you have to look at the history. Because the claim is not that Meghan happened to overshadow Prince Louis on one single occasion. The claim, made by Samantha Markle and echoed by a significant number of royal commentators, is that this has happened before, many times, and that the timing has almost never been accidental. Cast your mind back to when Harry and Meghan announced their decision to step back from royal duties, not in a meeting with the king, not through proper channels, not after any of the careful coordination an announcement of that magnitude would normally require. It dropped out of nowhere on a Thursday evening, no warning, in the middle of what should have been a period of quiet stability for the institution. The palace was stunned.
So yeah, like you said, it was just completely bizarre that she suddenly injected in there randomly about Archie losing a tooth. She's certifiable.
Senior members of the royal family learned about it from the news, not from Harry. It could hardly have been handled in a way more designed to cause maximum disruption. Then came the Oprah interview, perhaps the most striking example of all, because the timing was not just inconvenient, it felt to many people genuinely devastating. The interview aired in early 2021, while Prince Philip, then 99 years old, was hospitalized. The entire country was holding its breath. The Queen was facing the imminent loss of the man who had stood beside her for her entire reign. And into that moment, Harry and Meghan dropped 2 hours of allegations about the very institution Philip had devoted his entire life to serving. He passed away just 5 weeks later. Then came the Netflix documentary released in December of the following year, timed with what critics described as quite remarkable precision to land in the exact same week. The new Princess of Wales was making her first major solo overseas engagement. Catherine's visit to Boston was, by every measure, a triumph.
And you also just know, and this is why he's a broken man, and again, as you know, Tash, I have zero sympathy for the guy, but that is the type of rhetoric that is constantly put into Harry's head as well. It's like all about me, because I'm the female founder, I'm the woman, you are there for me.
She was received warmly, conducted herself impeccably, and generated the kind of genuinely positive international coverage the royal family depends on. And then Netflix dropped Harry and Meghan. Every outlet that had been covering Catherine's Boston trip pivoted instantly. The Sussex documentary swallowed the entire news cycle whole. A coincidence each time? An unfortunate series of accidents spread across years? Or something else, something more consistent, more intentional, more reflective of a deeply held belief that she should always be the story, regardless of what else is happening around her? Samantha Markle says the answer is clear, and Louis's birthday, she says, is simply the latest chapter in a story that has been running for a very long time. Now, let's talk about Harry, because Harry is very much present in this story. He was standing right there in New York, in that room, on that day. And yet he is somehow also entirely absent from it, which, if you think about it, is the most telling thing of all. Harry arrived at the Time 100 summit alongside his wife. He attended. He was photographed. He was by all accounts well-dressed and polite and present, but it was Meghan's event, Meghan's invitation, Meghan's speech, Meghan's moment. Harry did not speak on stage. Harry was not the reason anyone in that room was interested in the Sussexes' presence. Harry was there because Meghan was there, the supporting character in his own public appearance. Royal commentators noted this with what can only be described as a particular kind of sadness, because Harry is a prince of the United Kingdom.
She is so clearly saying that her priority is Lily over Archie because she is a girl and not a boy.
You got
and
that
that
too.
The raising of Archie is all about just ensuring that he's okay for women. It's a very, very odd way to raise a young boy. And it's why we have so much problem today with masculinity.
Of course, he's going to be brought up that everything's going to be toxic masculinity. He needs to be completely pussy whipped like his father. It's just everything to do with Meghan when she talks about the children. Nothing seems real. It doesn't seem like, I don't know, maybe it's a California thing. Maybe it's the sort of people that she's bringing them up with. Maybe it's all this word salad waffle that, you know, they all talk to each other. I mean, even when she talks to her friends, they all seem to be saying the same conversations. It's the same words. And it's going to be a very strange environment for the children in comparison.
He is the grandson of Queen Elizabeth II, one of the most beloved figures of the 20th century. He served his country in the military 2 tours of Afghanistan, actual combat, real service. For much of his 20s, he was one of the most genuinely popular figures in the entire world. People loved Harry, not just admired him, loved him. That warm, slightly chaotic, irrepressibly human prince who wore his heart on his sleeve and made the world feel the royal family might actually be made of real people after all. And now he stands slightly behind his wife at her public engagements. He smiles when required. He applauds on cue. And those who cover these events professionally keep using the same word to describe him from multiple sources, multiple outlets, and that word is despondent, not happy. Not fulfilled, despondent. Here is the profound irony that commentators simply cannot stop pointing to. Harry left the royal family, left his country, left his father, left his brother, left his grandmother in the final years of her life, left everything he had ever known in part. he said, because he refused to be reduced to a supporting role. He said he felt invisible beside his brother. He said he was treated as less important, less valued, perpetually secondary. He said he needed to escape that dynamic in order to survive. And there he is, standing to one side, slightly behind, smiling on cue, while his wife takes center stage and the room's attention belongs entirely to her. The spare again, only this time. The institution that made him spare is not the British monarchy. It is his own marriage. Now, let's step back from the emotion of all this and look at what was actually happening strategically, clinically, from the perspective of someone who understands how public image management works at the highest level. Because Meghan's appearance at this summit was not simply an interview, it was a carefully constructed PR operation. And once you understand what she needed it to achieve, every element of it, the tooth comment, the happiness confession, the specific platform chosen, the specific things said on it makes complete and perfect sense. At this particular point in her public life, Meghan was in a complicated position. Her Netflix show had aired to mixed reviews, warm in some quarters, savagely mocked in others. Her lifestyle brand had launched, generating buzz but also significant ridicule. Her podcast was new and unproven, she was mid-rebuild, and she needed a narrative reset. Enter the Time 100 Summit high profile, prestigious, covered by every major outlet. A room full of genuine achievers, the Netflix chief executive who could confirm her value to the platform, Hollywood stars who could signal her acceptance by the entertainment elite, philanthropists and power brokers who could hand her the kind of serious credibility her critics say she lacks. By simply occupying a seat in that room, Meghan was sending a message: I belong here. I am one of these people. I am serious, successful, and significant. And then she spoke, and every single word was calibrated to counter a specific criticism that had been lodged against her, happy countering the chaos and conflict narrative, grateful countering the entitlement perception, devoted mother countering the whispers about her parenting, thriving entrepreneur countering the sense that the Sussex brand was struggling. Every sentence a piece of image management, delivered with the ease of someone who has been doing this their entire adult life. And the tooth. The tooth was the most elegant move of all, completely unimpeachable, totally unchallengeable. What kind of person criticizes a mother for mentioning her child's tooth? Nobody. And yet its effect on that specific morning, on that specific day, was to pull Meghan's name and Meghan's children into the exact same news cycle as Louis's birthday, to place her maternal devotion alongside Catherine's, to make absolutely sure that mourning did not belong entirely to someone else. That is not an accident. That is skill, deeply uncomfortable skill, but skill nonetheless. Now we need to address directly and honestly the word that critics have used about this episode, the word lies, because it is a powerful word. It carries real weight and consequence and should never be used casually. So let's be precise about what is actually being alleged, by whom, and on what basis. The central claim is not that Meghan told a straightforward factual untruth on stage, that she invented the tooth, for example, or fabricated the New York visit. The claims being made are more subtle than that, and in some ways far more serious. They are about the gap between the image Meghan projects and the reality those closest to her describe, about the performance of a life that does not entirely match the life actually being lived. Consider the image Meghan presented on that stage. She is the happiest she has ever been. She has a supportive husband. She has healthy, joyful children living in safety and freedom. Her whole being is oriented toward her family. She is rushing home for Archie's tooth. She is raising her daughter to be strong and her son to respect women. Her children are her absolute priority above every summit, every platform, every camera. Now consider the reality of the preceding year and a half. The pace of Meghan's public schedule has been, by any measure, relentless podcasts, Netflix seasons, a brand launch, multiple New York trips within weeks of each other, galas, summits, appearances, a non-stop carousel of public commitments that would challenge anyone, let alone a mother of 2 young children. And yet through all of it, Archie and Lilibet have been almost entirely absent from public life, glimpsed in a controlled birthday photograph, briefly mentioned in an interview, invoked when it serves the narrative, and kept out of sight when it does not. Their existence is used as evidence of Meghan's devoted motherhood, while their actual daily lives remain strictly, carefully private. Samantha Markle says this combination, the passionate public declarations of devotion paired with private inaccessibility, is something she has watched Meghan deploy throughout her entire adult life. That the performance of closeness and warmth in Meghan's world has never been the same thing as actual closeness and warmth. That when Meghan talks about her children in public, it is never simply because she is thinking about them, it is because mentioning them serves a purpose. These are serious words. They paint a serious picture, and they come from someone who grew up in the same family, who watched these patterns form before Meghan was famous, who carries both the particular authority and the particular wounds of someone who has been on the receiving end of exactly what she describes. Now I want to pause here. I want to step away from the politics, the strategy, the PR calculations for a moment, and talk about something that rarely comes up in these conversations, but matters more than almost anything else in this story. The children. Archie Harrison Mountbatten Windsor is 6 years old. His sister Lilibet Diana is 3. They are real, living, growing children who had absolutely no say in any of the circumstances of their birth. They did not choose the family they were born into. They did not choose the controversy surrounding that family since before they were old enough to form a single memory. They did not choose to grow up in California rather than the country their father comes from. They did not choose to be separated from their grandparents, their cousins, their uncle, the entire extended family that children normally grow up shaped by. They did not choose any of it. And yet, from the very beginning, before Archie was even born, these children have been characters in a story that has nothing to do with them. His birth became an occasion for controversy about his title. His christening sparked debate about photographs. Questions about his appearance were discussed and speculated about in ways his parents described publicly to Oprah Winfrey and to the entire world, and he was not yet 2 years old when all of that happened. He is 6, now old enough to have preferences, opinions, and feelings, even if he cannot yet fully articulate them. Old enough to know his family is different from other families. Old enough to sense that something is unusual about the way the adults around him speak about themselves and their lives in public, but not yet old enough to understand what any of it truly means or what it will mean when he is older. And that is the part that gives people genuine pause, because Archie will grow up. He will reach the age where he can type his own name into a search engine, watch the interviews, the documentaries, the summit appearances, read what was said about him, about his parents, about his family, and understand all of it fully. He will be able to look at the moment his mother stood on a stage in New York and told the world about his tooth on the morning of his cousin's birthday and draw his own conclusions about what that was and why it happened. What will he make of it? What will he feel about the way his childhood was curated, his milestones shared for strategic purposes, his existence invoked on a public platform whenever it served the narrative? These are questions that nobody in Meghan's PR team appears to be thinking about, but Samantha Markle says someone absolutely should be, because children remember, and children eventually understand. Now, one of the most instructive things about situations like this is not what the palace says, it is what the palace does not say. Buckingham Palace, Kensington Palace, the entire official communications apparatus of the British monarchy operates under one principle that is as consistent as it is deliberate. They do not engage, they do not respond, they do not acknowledge, they look forward, release their photographs, and carry on. And the reason is not because they haven't noticed. It is because responding even to correct something genuinely unfair would be a gift. It would elevate the story. It would confirm that the Sussexes still matter inside those walls, still have the power to compel a reaction, still occupy enough mental and emotional space to be worth addressing. And that is precisely what Meghan and Harry want, and precisely what the palace will not give them. So on the morning of Louis's birthday, Kensington Palace released the birthday photographs, wrote their warm caption, and said absolutely nothing about what was happening across the Atlantic. William and Catherine allowed their son's day to belong entirely to their son. They did not compete. They did not acknowledge. They simply continued with the quiet dignity of people who have made a very deliberate decision that the Sussex drama is no longer something they will allow into their public life. It is a remarkable act of discipline, because you would have to be deeply naive to think that behind closed doors, the reaction to events in New York was one of complete indifference. People close to the royal family have described a real and very human frustration at the timing, at the narrative, at the sheer relentlessness of it, a frustration that never becomes public because the institution has decided it never will. The thinking is essentially this: the monarchy has survived 1,000 years of difficulty. It will survive this. William and Catherine are popular, hard-working, and present, and the British public understands the difference between substance and performance. That does not mean the wounds are not real. That does not mean Louis's birthday passed without quiet notice being taken of what happened on a stage in New York. But it means the palace has decided wisely. Most observers agree that the best response is no response. And so the photographs of a gap-toothed boy sitting on a log stand alone and speak entirely for themselves. Now, everything Samantha Markle has said about the events of Louis's birthday sits within a much larger argument. A larger claim that she has been making consistently, publicly, at considerable personal cost, for years. And that claim, in its simplest form, is this: the world is still not fully seeing the real Meghan Markle. The performance is still working, and until it stops working, it will never stop. Samantha's core argument, articulated in interviews, in her book, in countless public statements, is that Meghan's need to be the center of attention is not simply a strategy she employs. It is something deeper, a fundamental part of who Meghan is, formed early in life, reinforced by every success she has ever had, and now so deeply embedded that it operates almost automatically. She grew up, Samantha says, in an environment where attention had to be earned and performed for where being the most visible, most talked about person in the room was the currency that mattered most. Those habits of mind do not dissolve with fame. If anything, fame amplifies them. What makes Samantha's account particularly difficult to dismiss, apart from the fact that she was actually there, actually witnessed these patterns forming, is the consistency of the behavior she describes. The pattern of inserting herself into other people's moments, the pattern of reframing narratives that do not serve her, the pattern of performing closeness and vulnerability in ways that produce exactly the response she needs. It is not random, Samantha says. It is not a series of unfortunate coincidences. It is a coherent, consistent way of moving through the world. And the most unsettling part of Samantha's analysis, the part that generates the most discomfort, is her suggestion that Meghan may not experience any of this as manipulation. That the need is so instinctive, so automatic, so deeply built into her identity, that she genuinely does not see herself as doing anything wrong. That from inside Meghan's own experience, she is simply living her life, doing what comes naturally, being who she is. Which means that no consequence, no criticism, no amount of public pushback is likely to change it, because you cannot correct what you cannot see. What the evidence makes impossible to deny is that the relationship between the Sussexes and the rest of the royal family is profoundly, perhaps permanently broken. The reconciliation many hoped for has not happened. Quiet diplomacy has not produced it. Time, at least so far, has not produced it either. There is still, by all accounts, a father's love from King Charles persistent, pained, confused, but present. Doors have reportedly been left open. But the terms of any genuine reconciliation have always been clear. Harry would need to return to Britain in some meaningful way and bring to an end the ongoing stream of public statements, interviews, documentaries, and books that have systematically taken apart the institution he was born into. None of that appears imminent. Harry is in California, his children are in California, and Meghan's entire professional identity, every platform, every brand, every relationship she has built in America, is predicated on the story of a couple who escaped a cruel institution and built something better on the other side. For that story to survive, the institution must remain the villain. And so it does. Pull back far enough to see the whole picture, and what happened on Louis's birthday was never really about a tooth. It is a microcosm, a compressed, sharply lit version of the entire Sussex story, a study in contrasts that has been playing out for years, and one that the more you examine it, the more clearly it reveals about both sides of this divide. On one side, the royal family, ancient, bound by tradition and duty, releasing a photograph of a little boy on a log, letting it speak entirely for itself, asking for nothing in return beyond a shared moment of warmth. No claims, no speeches, no confessions of happiness, just a little boy, a log, a smile, and an invitation to simply enjoy it. On the other side, Meghan Markle, ambitious, brilliant in her own way, relentlessly strategic, stepping onto a stage in New York, delivering a crafted message of personal happiness and maternal devotion, ensuring her name appeared in the same news cycle as her nephew's birthday, whether through deliberate design or through instinct, so deeply shaped over a lifetime that it now operates without conscious thought. Meghan's defenders will say, and they are not entirely wrong, that she cannot be held responsible for the timing of the summit, that a mother mentioning her child's tooth is not a crime, that the criticism directed at her is disproportionate and rooted in an unwillingness to simply allow this woman to live her life. Those are legitimate points. This is not a simple story, and it would be dishonest to present it as one. But Samantha Markle has been watching her half-sister for longer than almost anyone else in this public conversation. She knew her before the cameras. She knows her in a way no PR team and no summit audience can replicate. And what she says is this: nothing that happens in Meghan's public life is accidental. Nothing is unplanned. Nothing is spontaneous. And on the morning the world was looking at Prince Louis, Meghan made sure the world was also looking at her. Whether that makes her a ruthless media operator, a deeply driven woman doing what her nature compels her to do, or simply someone who cannot bear to be out of the story, that is a question each of us has to answer for ourselves. But it is a question worth sitting with, because the woman at the center of it is not going anywhere, and neither, it seems, is the pattern. Prince Louis turned 7. He had a real birthday private, full of cake and noise, and the particular chaos of a 7-year-old surrounded by people who love him completely. He grinned that gap-toothed grin for photographs his parents will treasure for the rest of their lives, and that the rest of us were simply lucky to see. He has no idea that his birthday became, for a few hours that morning, part of a much larger and far more complicated story, and perhaps that is exactly as it should be. He is 7. The story can wait. Archie Harrison, somewhere in Montecito, lost his first tooth around that same time in private, without cameras. Whether his mother made it home in time, we do not know. What we know is that the news of that tooth traveled further than Archie will likely ever fully understand, heard in London, Sydney, New York, and 1,000 living rooms where people who care about the royal family were watching that morning unfold. 2 little boys, 2 missing teeth, 2 very different childhoods unfolding in the long, complicated shadow of an institution that has stood for 1,000 years and will stand for 1,000 more. And somewhere between them, between the log in Norfolk and the stage in New York, the real story of this era of the royal family, with all its heartbreak, its ambition, and its extraordinary human messiness, continues to write itself. Samantha Markle says she knows how the story ends. She says she has always known. Whether the rest of us catch up to what she has been seeing all along, that remains to be seen. What is not in doubt is that Prince Louis deserved better that morning. A 7-year-old boy, sitting on a log in Norfolk, smiling for his mum, he deserved to have that moment be entirely his. Whether he got to keep it, well, you watched the same news cycle we all did. You can draw your own conclusions. If this video gave you something to think about, hit that like button. It makes a massive difference and helps more people find these stories. If you are not yet subscribed, hit that button right now so you never miss an episode. Share this with someone who follows the royal family. The comments section is where the real conversation happens, and we read every single one. We will see you in the next one.